the 6 flavors of emptiness in the last class, because Pabonka Rinpoche is giving us a deep explanation of how different types of students need different presentations, and how we need to understand all of those different flavors of emptiness for 2 reasons. One, for ourselves, so that when we're having a problem, we might be able to say, well, what understanding of emptiness do I have right now? And usually, for me anyway, I'm at level 0. I'm not even at the level of this will pass, this will change. I'm usually at the level of like, yeah, I just call it level 0. 0 understanding of emptiness. And then you can use the different levels to understand how to inch yourself upwards, like how to get yourself out of a rut, for example. Because the thing that happens when we get in, we're at flavor 0, what happens is then problems escalate because we think it has to be this way. We think it's always going to be this way. And so then it goes off, it takes a full, like, monstrous life of its own. And it's normal. Like, it's a normal thing for us to get stuck in those things. And then the second reason Pabonka Rinpoche does it is because it's for the students. When a student comes to you and has a particular problem, you can evaluate, where are they? Are they at level 0? Should they be somewhere else? Right. And of course, you can't say they should be anywhere else than what they're presenting to you, because that's, guess what? It's your problem if they have a problem with emptiness. Right? Because you're the one that sees it that way. Although I think there's some subtleties to that are a little bit less, that are not quite, they're a little bit more nuanced than that. But if you can understand where the student is, then you can really help them. Like, are they at level 0 and you need to get them to level 1? Like, this will change. Don't worry, buddy. We got you. How do you get them out of, one of the arts? One of my teacher is masterful of pulling me out of an affliction, and then knows how to navigate the way, so then I can start seeing, maybe there's another point of view here. Maybe something else is happening. Maybe this will change. Maybe there's a seed. Maybe we should talk about karma, right? Like, to move them from this tight place to this place of expansiveness. And so that's what I think Pabonka is giving us the skills to do, is how do we expand our students' hearts and minds when they have problems? Because guess what? Student equals problem. It's no other way. They are a problem. Not in not a negative sense, but it's like, students will have problems, right? And it's your job to figure out how to inspire them to fix their problems. In what ways are they attached to wrong ideas? Right? In what ways do you teach and they don't listen to you? Why do I have to see that, Tim? Right? I don't know why I have to see that. I don't have to go very far. But the idea is, how do you expand the student, and how do you inspire them to do it on their own? Because at the end of the day, you can't do it for them as much as they want you to do it for them. Sometimes we're at level 0 and we just need a fucking hug. We just need someone to be like, I got you. Right. And then, they hold on to you, and then you'll be fine. But at the end of the day, even that, unless you have the karma for it to work, it won't work. Like if you're trying to reach out to somebody for help and they don't give you help, why? You know, and that's a hard thing to navigate sometimes. So where are we? We're in the middle. We just finished. We did the 6 flavors of emptiness. And then Paboka comes back. Okay. Well, Paboka didn't go away. Tim went away. We're going to come back to Paboka now. Let's be real about this. And what he's basically doing is he's hold on, let me make sure I have this correct. Where were we before I went off on my little trip here? Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So he's talking about, so Pabonka was talking about the 6 flavors of emptiness in a general sense. He was talking about students of this level, then even better students, and then more advanced students than like the highest students. You know, I'd like to say that if anyone can understand that things are always changing, that's a pretty advanced student, period. And don't think otherwise. So now I went off onto a trip into the 6 flavors of emptiness so we could go deeper. And now we're coming back to Pavonka's commentary on this. So, okay. Let's have somebody read. I don't know who Jenny Galvis is, but I think she wants to read for the first time.
Yeah, sure. From the top, the
Yeah, from the
young.
top. Yep.
So I'm nervous.
Good. Perfect. Good
The
job.
young estompa young kids. Long
Tompani. Tompani.
company.
Excellent. All right. Let's also do
Lo,
let's do the verse 2.
okay. Lo pyons
Choke.
between
Low choke.
lo jong pietat liuduni.
Good.
De longpat lamchair chargspa.
Okay, so this word is den.
Bien. Okay.
Chair.
Then
And this is not
chair
obvious. Drakpa.
chargspa.
Good job. Keep going. You're doing wonderful.
The mean kushes both patse.
Mm-hmm.
Yongdan metpa pyeongji pa.
Let's do this one word again. Choke.
Chok
Jikpa.
jikpa.
All right. Nice. Good
Thanks.
job. The first time's the worst. I mean, nervous wise. Good job.
Thanks.
Okay. There's a line way down here. Where did it go? I lost one of the lines of the text. Anyway, but it's here somewhere. Um, so the Buddha also said, okay, this is sort of saying the Buddha also said the following, and this is about Nagarjuna. So to the south, in the land you'll do of it's Beta, it's Pata or something like that. It's a name of some ancient town in India. The there's a monk of incredible renown. So Drakpa means renown. Gelong Pelden, a glorious monk. So there'll be a glorious monk who's called Naga Deming. So who is called Lu She. Lu is Naga. And they will call him that Budpa. Budpa. What does that word look like to everybody? If anybody knows, what does it remind you of?
Book.
What's that?
Maybe book.
I mean, no, it doesn't look like an English word. So if you took the ao off of it, so if we took this little tiny letter off, what is b? It's a country, yes, Tibet. When you put the ao in front of it, it means to call out. How are those two things related?
I think Tibet was called Tibet, because they were calling the yaks all the time, herding.
No,
Hmm?
no, that's a good answer, but no. Think mountains, think India. It was a place you had to call from India. Like you had to go up high in the mountains and yell out to it. So there is a kind of yelling, right? A calling out. And it's not because they called the yaks, but that's really nice. Good try on that one. So basically, in the land of the south, there'll come a glorious monk whose name, by the name of Naga, they will call him Naga, and he will destroy the positions, Jikpa, choke the positions of Yutang Mepa. He will destroy the positions of they exist and they don't exist. So Pabonka Rinpoche is giving us basically gave us a whole overview of the six flavors of emptiness. And then he's saying, oh, by the way, there's this guy from the Buddha also said, look, there's this guy called Nagarjuna who's going to show up and he's going to talk about how things exist and don't exist. And so because we're the mixed nuts, I went and checked this quote to see, did the Buddha really say this? And let's see here. Yes, the Buddha did say it, and it's in the Kangyur, and the section called the Domang, which is just like general sutras. All right, so he did say it, and the quote is accurate. So good job, Pabonka, which we knew he did fine. Which actually he didn't write it down. Trijang Rinpoche wrote it down, so good job, Trijang Rinpoche as well. And then I was like, I wonder if this shows up anywhere else. And Jason Kappa actually says something very similar. And we find this in the illumination of the true thought. And I thought it'd be a nice little extra, just a little extra blah blah for us to know. And this comes from the illumination of true thought. So how about Anna Vako? Could you read this, please? Starting here.
Jaya Tekpa, Jig Tendu, Lamet Tenchen, Ra Headnas,
Shene.
Shine,
Mm-hmm.
Raptu Dabaisa Grupte,
Drupte.
Jupte, Te Bakendu Degro.
Nice. Good job. So in the illumination of true thought, I want to make sure I have this. Is the Jason Kappa is also talking about the prophecy of when Nagarjuna will come. And so he's basically saying that is that Nagarjuna will come. He will take me, na. He will take me. He will also explain it, she, to the world. Right? He'll explain it to the world. He will also explain it to me. He will show it to me. So Nagarjuna is not, so Jason Kappa is not only saying that he explains this to the world in general, but he's also saying, look, if you read Nagarjuna well, Nagarjuna was actually speaking to you. He wasn't just, and this is a very Diamond Way reading of it, right? That it was written for you and to explain it to you so you can understand it. Right? He will explain it as the greater way, the unsurpassed Lame. And there's also, for those Diamond Way practitioners around, the unsurpassed is also the highest yoga tantra as well. So Nagarjuna is also, if for those of you that don't know, Nagarjuna wrote extensively on Diamond Way. So not only was he predicted to be the one who destroyed the extremes of Ye and Me, existence and non-existence, he's also saying that he was explain it to the world. He will explain it to me. He will explain the greater way, and he'll explain the unsurpassed greater way. This is just 2 lines. Right? He'll attain that level, sadrup, right? Rabtugawa. He'll attain that level of highest happiness. Hold on, Tim's having another possible breakthrough. He could be wrong, so he's just checking. Okay, correct. Just he'll attain the level of greatest happiness. And then he will go he will go to the heaven of bliss, Dewa Chen. So in these 4 little lines that Tsongkhapa quotes from a sutra, Nagarjuna was basically prophesized or foretold that he would come, he would destroy the extremes, he would explain it to the world, he would explain it to you, he would explain the higher way and the unsurpassed, and he would be perfectly happy and he would go to the heaven of bliss. Sounds like a pretty freaking awesome thing. Okay. All right, let's read this last part of this quote just so we can get it from Geshe-la's book here, or from Illumination of True Thought. Laura, can you read this next line here, starting with Shene?
Shene don gitek bayot met kita ni dang rarwa lukrup trupki rel pa
Drawa.
sungso drelwa
Mhm.
sungso.
Okay, excellent. So the meaning of this, the Nedun, he just meant what he really meant is that we would be free from Dangdrawa of the 2 extremes, which are what? Ye and Me. All right. So basically, it's not that Nagarjuna is saying that this is what he really meant. What Nagarjuna is saying is this is what the Buddha really meant. Right? The Buddha intended to teach. So there's this cool thing here where it says Ludripki Drawa. So Nagarjuna is commenting on the true intent of the Buddha. Basically saying, look, this is what he said. And he basically said the two extremes are what are keeping us back. And so he is teaching us how to free ourselves of those two things which the Buddha taught. So Nagarjuna seems like a pretty cool guy, I think. Let's see here. Who would like to read? Vivi, can you read? Or would you like to try?
I'll try,
Okay.
but never done it. So, where? Okay.
Right here.
Je yod ta dang me ta ang pai gal by dong grelba sorry pa
Galway Gongpa.
gompa
Mhm.
galway dongpa grelba la granchla dangbral balung stan paim gon po Clui, Chapskai, Chezun, Branchnes, Leta, Bashtal, de Gauche, Ki.
Good key. Nice. Excellent. Good job. Yay. So literally this sentence is almost identical in meaning to the sentence that's in the illumination of a true thought. And we know that Pavonka pulled his LAMRIM from the LAMRIM Chemo, which was written by
Yetsogab.
Jason Kappa. Correct. That's why I'm pulling from there. Okay. So what this is saying is that we need to eliminate Pangpa, the extreme of existence, and the extreme of non-existence, Yuta Metta. Okay. And so by commenting on the true meaning of the conqueror's words, the Buddha's words, okay. Where do I want to go from here? He teaches us how to be free from that. All right. And he was prophesized Lung Tenpa, meaning, and Gunpa Lu is going to be the protector of Nagarjuna. He was prophesized by whom? By the Buddha. Okay. And if you want to seek the meaning of correct view, you should follow in the footsteps of him, of that protector. All right, that was a complicated sentence from a structure point of view. So basically what he's saying is that if you want to study correct view, the person you should go looking for is Nagarjuna. Because Nagarjuna, first of all, was prophesied by the Buddha, which is the reason why we just read those two prophecies, one from one sutra and one from another sutra. And that he did clarify the true meaning of the Buddha's thought about how to remove those two extremes. All right. Here we go. Next line. Maria Nestorov, can you read the next one?
De min sosoi kang du dure sardu chepe tawa se semo mangpor mayang ludrupki gyongpadang tuna ta wa tartukingi.
Nice. Okay, I want to go back to the end of this first line here. What does this key mean at the end of the sentence?
Karma.
What's that?
Karma.
No.
No.
Nope.
This will later be explained.
No, it's more disjunctive. How about that? That word.
But
Yes, exactly. It can mean it's just like it's ending the sentence, but so it's adding a little bit. It's basically saying, look, all of this is what we're saying about Nagarjuna, but so what's happening here? And this, I find this sentence I find it funny. I don't know if other people will find it funny, but it's basically there's some people. So we have some individuals, right? So soy kang, some people who there's a how do I translate this? There's some people who continue to pontificate on the latest claims of what the correct view really is. Okay. There's some people who are like, I know what emptiness is. Right. And they even speak of it in a way, sabsa mo. Right. They speak of it in such a way that they have the deepest of the deep. Like, and I hear this often, right? People who have studied for 5 minutes about reality, or they had some kind of journey on a mountainside in Sedona, some drug-induced experience, which was probably quite profound. And then they're talking about the depths of reality without any kind of understanding of what it means. And I don't like to sound sectarian, but I'm going to just for 1 second. There are people that make these other claims. And so my first question to everybody is, should we disregard them? Right. And it's difficult to say we should in one way because they're incorrect. But in other ways, we should be very careful about who these people are. And Pabonka he was a little bit edgy in the way he presented things. Like he didn't sugarcoat. I mean, this is near the end of the teaching. This is 24 days. This is day 22, I think, of 24 days. People have been listening for 12 hours a day, right? And now he's teaching them emptiness after 22 days. I know what happens when I'm in a classroom for like 3 hours. I'm just like, oh my God, I need a break, right? So probably something like that was happening. But I think he's also has had people's attention for 22 days. And he's like, look, you could spend your time with these so-called people who pontificate on what they believe correct reality is, or take the time to investigate what that is. And he's saying, look, do it yourself, but Nagarjuna has it. And the weird thing about this class is, guess what? In the last class, we spent an hour talking about Nagarjuna. There's a weird connection between the two that I did not plan on purpose. That these ideas keep popping up. Why do these ideas keep popping up for us, class? Tim, why do we keep hearing these things? Right? Why do you have to keep saying these things? But he's basically saying we should only be spending our valuable time only if these claims are in alignment with Tangtunna, if they're only in alignment with the meaning of Nagarjuna, the ultimate view as presented by Nagarjuna. So if they're not in alignment, don't waste your time. How do you know if they're in alignment? How do you even know if Nagarjuna is true? Right. You see, so this is kind of where we have to use our own brains, right? Like it does feel a little sectarian to me, but he's basically saying, look, I think this is just my humble opinion. I think Pabonka Rinpoche is basically saying, look, I know. I'm not just repeating things. I know. Like when someone is this emphatic about something, either they're fanatical, right? It's like, are they a pontificator or are they someone who knows the truth? Right. And then you got to figure it out yourself. You know, when someone is that clear of how things really are, you know, I don't know. We have to think about how do we evaluate it? And I think we should have these discussions. I don't think we should just say Nagarjuna is right. I think we should debate it and tear it apart and then talk about these other pontificators of the latest claims of what reality really is. And then put a test to it and see which ones hold up. Or does reality ever hold up at all? Maybe it doesn't. All right, next line. How about let's get some new people here who haven't read yet. You're all hiding behind your cameras right now. Mimi, do you want to try? Yeah, let's try.
I have no idea, but I'll give it a try.
Excellent.
Dela Zandu Girpa Ni Gyalba Dongpa Lalong Patsitu Rapar Nebod Kiblun Podang Taki no
Tachi.
Tachi
Mm-hmm.
Gyaga Gi Has
Kepa.
Kepa Chenpo Lobdo Legdan
Mm-hmm.
Yadang
Che. That one's a confusing one. Che.
Chedang
Mm-hmm.
Bodki Panchen Yonangpa Zokman Poang Tabe Nadi La Rulching
Chul.
Chul
Chulching.
Chulching.
Good job. Yay. All right. In 6 months, it'll be perfect. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay. So with regards to other presentations, okay, we're now he's softening. Maybe he was like, I went a little too far. Now he's just softening a little bit. Okay. From the perspective of the true meaning of the Buddha's words, okay, what they're saying is that they're at best a distortion of the Buddha's thought. Okay. So he's kind of saying, well, look, a lot of people have, and I think what he's speaking of, and I don't know, I wasn't there and I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I mean, maybe I was in the audience. 1921, 22, maybe, I don't know. I didn't get a chance to ask this question. I believe he's talking about people who interpret the Buddhist thought and saying, this is what the Buddha really said. And he's basically saying, look, with regards to any other presentations of this, is that at best, it's a distortion of Nagarjuna's thought. At worst, it's a complete disaster. right? And I think what he's saying is he's worried that people are misunderstanding what the Buddha really meant, and how that is how that doesn't help people. Like, if you don't understand how something is not coming from its own side, and how that it also at the same time does not exist. I think I did that right. Where you're finding that middle way, if you're not being led through that properly, you're just going to fall into one of the others, and either side will just lead you back into some samsaric spiral, downward spiral. And so what he's saying is, like, look, we need to spend the time to understand this. We need to use all of our faculties to get it. And it says with certainty, right? And I would also say that if we can understand this properly, then that's what can allow us to make something like a diamond way practice function. Because if you understand what emptiness is and what emptiness is not, and emptiness isn't anything to begin with, but it has a flavor of having something. If you understand how dependence works, this way, how things are interdependent with each other, and you understand how karma functions, you have a hope of changing things. But if you don't understand the depths of it, then it's just going to be a bunch of blah blah. Really, it's just going to be a bunch of mantras and mudras and da-da-da-das, and it'll just be a waste of your time. It'll just be another samsaric activity. And that's a huge warning for anyone moving who want to go to Diamond Way. People keep asking me, I'm like, study Nagarjuna, like, study all these things. Because otherwise it's just a waste of your time, and it's a waste of the teacher's time. It's not a waste of anyone's time. All right. So what else is going on here? So next line, you can join in. We're just having a class till 9. No. So I'm online, by the way. So we don't even need to mention some of these Tibetan scholars, okay? We don't even need to mention some of these people who have other presentations. Like, he's basically saying, look, there's other people. We don't even need to mention most of them, right? Then he says, we don't even need to mention some of these great pandits, right? From India. Okay. And then this guy always gets shit on. This Baba Viveka. Everyone's always shitting on this guy, right? Like, and if you've been in any mixed nuts class, everyone's always like tearing this guy down. Okay. Like, this is some kind of Buddha who showed up just to like be criticized. Okay. We don't even need to mention these so-called like Budke Lumpo scholars. We don't even need to talk about Baba Viveka, right? And in these other guys from Tibet, such as the Panchen Jo Nangpa, which is Jetsun Taranata. I don't think it's the same Taranata. But, many of these people, Sok Mangpo, there's so many of them who pretend that they understand Nagarjuna. They understand the Buddha's true intent, right? And he says they were gravely mistaken. Their viewpoint is completely wrong. So he like softens for a sentence, and then he's like, yeah, all these other people, they suck. Translation. But it's not, and I'm kind of making a joke, but it's really about, don't waste your time with people with points of view that are going to hurt you or not help you. And so how do you ensure that? And that's why you go to classes. That's why you show up. That's why you do all these things. So you can evaluate, does this make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. if there's something about it that does make sense, explore it, right? But don't be sectarian either. Maybe some of these other points of view can help people. Uh-oh, I skipped a line here. Hold on. All right, here we go. One extra line here. How about, who would like to read? Who wants to come up on screen? I got an audience here. How about Maria Nesterov? Can you read?
Dele Shempanga Shingini Ludrupki Jesun Drankyang De Kunpama Tok Padang Nga Shengni Lui Jesumi Drank Parma Se De La Kakpar Chepa Sok Kyang Chungmo.
Nice, good. So he doesn't stop here. So he says, from these other presentations, right? There's some other people, right? And sadly, there's some who did follow Nagarjuna. They were trying. They were doing it. They were like, I'm going to follow Nagarjuna, Kyung, but they weren't able to accurately ascertain his true meaning, right? So that's kind of a little sad. Like they tried, they gave it a good shot, which is probably what happened to most of us, and that's why we were reborn, and that's why we're still here, and we didn't quite understand it and have to do it again. So don't think that you're special or that you understand it. Try to understand it, and you are special because you're trying. But what I mean is, don't have pride about it. And then there's some other ones. There were some that made no efforts to follow anything of Nagarjuna. Okay. They didn't make any efforts to follow his thinking. And they made great efforts to criticize him at large. They took great liberties. I love these types of people. These are my favorite types of people. They don't even try, yet they have a lot of criticisms to throw at others. Right? And this is kind of cool. Like within 2 lines, Pabonka is really giving us the world of 1921 is not much different than the world of 2024. People who think they know something and then they criticize others based on something they have no idea what the hell's going on. And you can really destroy somebody with one criticism. Even if you don't understand it, and then you criticize someone, you can destroy their career, you can destroy their reputation. Of course, where's that coming from? But I think it's really important for us to be very careful, even when there's other people who have other ideas that may not be yours, which may not be Buddhist ideas, which might be, even if they have worldviews that seem to hurt other people, how do you take care of them? And I think that's a really big lesson for all of us. Sure, we're criticizing, we're basically pointing out wrong views, but how do we care for others in that? And if you want people to have correct view, how do you care for others who have wrong views? If you want to have omniscience, how do you care for others who have wrong views? Because isn't omniscience knowing all things, including wrong views? Next line, I'll just leave that one there. That one landed just a little bit. How about Let's see here. Hien, would you like to read the next line? Nope. Nope, she's holding a stuffed animal though. How about Addie? Would you like to try?
Yes. Lu, Ju, Ja, Ja, Ni,
Say.
Lu,
Yabse.
Yapse, Ilu, Lamitsu, Pash, de la Pi, Rudu, Yur, Pa, Rak, Soy, La, Baston, Pa, Ni, Sla, Ba,
Dawe. So this word is da,
Yahweh.
and this means moon. But who's it refer to?
Okay, thank you.
It refers to Chandakirti. Okay. So when we refer to just the moon, sometimes we're just talking about Chandakirti. So Chandakirti said, and you can see down here, there's another quote here. So Chandakirti discussed this as well. And what he basically said is that those who didn't rely upon, this is a weird translation, but sort of did not rely upon the systems of Nagarjuna and the next lineage. It says spiritual children, but the people who follow Nagarjuna, okay? People who don't rely upon that. And then who also, or in those whose personal worldview creations. I was trying to find a good translation for it. It's like Rang Soi Tawa. So it's basically like worldviews that are just created out of someone's probably direct experience, but limited experience, right? They had some kind of experience of the way the world is, and then they're like, the whole world is this way, right? And then they were outside of Nagarjuna's Nagarjuna system, creating their own unique worldviews. This is what Chandakirti had to say about that. Got 10 minutes. Perfect. How about Anna? Would you like to read? Yep, that's you. Yep, that's you. You.
Complicated. Okay. Slop Bon Clue Scrap
Droop.
Como?
Blue droop.
Jup Jup Japs Q Lam Lasni Pil Pilor Jur Lashi By Tabs Medu Dedakun Zop Denip Bden Las Nyams de las Nyams Pas Harpa Jup Yotnim.
Nice. Good job. And then you learn which letters don't make sounds. And that's
Because I confuse with Spanish pronunciation and English pronunciation and Russian as well. Oh,
no te preocupes, todo bien. Todo bien.
Gracias.
Okay. All right. So there's no way, Tabmedo, there's no way, there's no path, there's no method, there's no method to peace. And what we're talking about here is nirvana and liberation. There's no method to peace from the outside, is what it says. Okay. Unless you're walking the path of the master Nagarjuna, right? And so I've kind of switched this sentence around a bit. There's no way to peace when you're walking a path not laid out by the master Nagarjuna. Okay. I don't like this idea of something on the outside that feels me and you. It's what the words say. try to soften a little bit in the English. But there's no way to do that unless, this is what Chandakirti says, who wrote Entering the Middle Way, which is a commentary to Nagarjuna's wisdom. Okay. So he's a fan. There is no way to peace when you're walking a path not laid forth by the master Nagarjuna. And there's this word nyam here, which means kind of like degenerate. So when you wander away from the two truths, the truth of deceptive, kunsok, and deni, the ultimate. When you wander away from those truths, the conventional and the ultimate, you fall short and lose your way. Dele nampa. And you will not be able, Yudmin, achieve liberation. There's Chandakirti for you, summing it up. He's a fan, right? We're just doing this over and over again. All right, so we have 10 minutes left. We'll get through, nice, we'll get through all this today. All right, cool. Anastasia, can you read the next line, please? Starting with Shiwei.
Shiwei go ni pashikyona mato temindu di jesuma trempar chatamedo lutruki chendra trang namki namne chowo chimpu.
Nice. Okay. Sorry, we're on the same point. We're going to keep hammering this point over and over again. All right. If only there were a second option that led to peace. If only there were another one, period. And since there is not, all right, it's really intense. Since there is no way to do that, all right, there is no way that one can do that. We have no choice. It seems like the only choice is to follow Nagarjuna. All right. And Lord Atisha has an opinion on that. What does he have to say? All right. Apparently everyone has an opinion on this. So what happened to, hey, Marina, are you still there? Oh no, or are you with, you got a couple minutes?
Yeah. Don't you then cheek don shena, deshen shek beluk then chin, chonete pa sek pa in, ludruk loma la
Da.
da,
Da.
yes,
Mhm.
trek in.
Okay. All right. Now here's the punchline. This is when Pawanka Rinpoche reveals why we should pay attention to Nagarjuna. All right. Tongni Kangi Tokshena. How is it that we can realize emptiness? That's a really good question, right? Deshin Shekpe Lung Ten Ching. There was someone who was foretold by the conqueror, okay, who he himself saw directly with his holy eyes the truth of chudni, of suchness, the truth of emptiness. He saw emptiness himself. And his name is none other than Ludrup. All right. And then Loma Dajrakyan, he had a student named Chandakirti. Like it's this like big thing, and then like, oh, and he has a student in the last 5 words. Okay. So Pabonka is like, look, why should we follow Nagarjuna? Chuni Dempa Shikpayi, because he saw emptiness directly. Maybe he knows something that these other folks don't. And then Chandakirti was a student. All right. And what does it have to say next about it? How about Anastasia, can you read these 2 lines?
Dele kyupe mengaki chöni dempa tongwarngu.
Nice. And from the stream, de la Gupe, from the stream of Mennak, from the stream of private instructions that came from Nagarjuna to Chandakirti, we too can learn to see Tongwar, the truth of Chuni, the truth of emptiness, the truth of suchness. Okay. So this whole long discussion about, why it is that we should follow Nagarjuna's system and why it is that we should disregard all these other so-called truth seekers and the people who pontificate about their version of reality, which is probably interesting in some way. And it probably has some truth in it, right? They probably saw something like a truth, right? But but if you don't have the whole perspective, then it gets to a place where it can hurt people, right? And as people who will be teachers, all of you, we need to understand emptiness. We need to understand the ins and outs of it. We need to understand what it means to say something doesn't exist from its own side, but things don't not exist at all. Like, where is that space, you see? And then what does that do for your practice? What does it do for your understanding of the kitchen when someone's yelling at you, or you're having a difficult time with your partner, or you're having a difficult time at work, or you're having a difficult time understanding the differences between your country and someone else's country? And if you can understand all of how we get stuck in the extremes, then it's impossible. Then it becomes possible to change everything. And then when you get ready for Diamond Way, then you can be ready for it. Then you can be ready to make those transformations. Tracy, we miss you.
I miss you all and love you all too.
So that's all we have. That's all Pabonka has for today. And the reason we should follow Nagarjuna is because he's an Arya, because he saw emptiness directly. And that's why we should pay attention to his points of view and maybe not other people's points of view. And maybe there's some secret message in there and why maybe we should look for Aryas in our world. And maybe if you found one, maybe you can have that direct perception yourself. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thanks, tech team. Thank you, translators. We'll be back on Thursday, karma willing. And yeah, have a great day and say goodbye to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.